This is the Simpit. I'm Andreas Martin Mørk. Welcome to Project Sim Racer. It's finally time to show you day 1 of the 7-day sim camp. Now, what is the 7-day sim camp, I hear you say? Well, it's an insight into a week of my sim racing preparations. Now, I'm still in school for a few months more, and I don't have as much time as I would have liked to dedicate to sim racing. So most weeks I'm running a much more downscaled version of what you're going to see in these videos. This particular week, however, was winter break, and since I didn't have any major plans, I decided to run an extensive 7-day sim racing schedule. Here you can see my schedule for the week. The racing row is the most important one, but the fitness row is actually also very important for me, as being in good shape really helps me stay calm and focused during the racing. Also, if I ever get the opportunity to drive a real race car, I'll be much more prepared for that. During the 7-day sim camp, I'll be driving the Star Master in preparation for the league race on Friday, and the Skip Barber in preparation for the league race on Saturday. I'll also race both cars in the official series on Sunday. With all that out of the way, let's get started with day 1. This day starts off with a nice breakfast and a 6-kilometer run in my local area.
Honestly, it probably should be legal to be this bad at cracking eggs open. I think that's how it's supposed to look.
Alright, so I'm just about ready for my morning run. I look like someone who's been out drinking all night. And it's pretty freaking cold outside. I don't know if you can see it. You can probably hear the wind. Having not slept all too well, it took some determination to get out into the cold, but I did manage to get my legs moving and came back feeling refreshed. I was now completely ready to jump in the Skip Barber and learn this week's track. Or so I thought. Alright, so I just noticed some issues with my pedals. If we take a look at the throttle input here, so that's the green bar there, and we play, you'll see some weird stuff going on. Look at the top of that. It's just releasing the throttle just a slight bit. I noticed this after I noticed the fact that on the straightaway I heard the brake sound, but I couldn't see anything down here. So actually I checked the telemetry. Alright, so here is a picture from the telemetry. This is zoomed in on the brake force. And if you see, it just keeps braking just a slight bit now and then. Now this probably isn't going to be a huge issue. The issue is only if it's affecting the precision of the pedals as well. I probably won't notice this in the lap times at all. But I'll have a look to see if a recalibration will fix it, or if it's just some kind of loose connection. We'll see. Okay, so I had a look, and they didn't look very dusty. I actually dusted them off last week, so I don't think that's it. By the way, those are my racing flip-flops you can see right there. So I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe something inside. However, I tried to recalibrate them now after just trying to dust them off anyway, just for the sake of it, and it actually seems like it's working now. But we'll keep testing, and hopefully, if it comes back, I might have to take them apart and see what's inside. But we'll see. Okay, so I think we may have found the issue. On the outside, it looked pretty clean and all that, but take a look at the inside here. There's just dust everywhere, and I'll get that removed. Hopefully, that's the only issue. But it could very well be. So let's get it cleaned and then put it back together and resume 7-day sim camp. Okay, so I've cleaned it up as well as I could now, and now it's just about time to put it all back together and see if the thing is still working. Will be interesting. Okay, before putting every single little screw and also these pedal heads, I guess they're called, whoops, back together, I'll just give it a quick test drive to see if that's fixed the issue. Hopefully it has. Okay, let's calibrate the pedals, see if they're still working at all. Seems like the slightest touch. That only goes back to 98% for some reason. Does still jump around just a bit. Let me just show you here. Okay, so we're depressing the throttle completely. Okay, that's no issue. It seems like it keeps it down now. As we go back, it's a bit of jumping around, trying to keep my foot as steady as I can. Let's go back all the way to 100%. And see how it kind of jumps sometimes. Did you see that? If I just barely touch it, it will start doing it again. Now my foot is not on the pedal right now, so that is definitely an issue. Seems like it's only the throttle and the brake. What I think I'll do instead is I'll calibrate its. I'll push it completely down, depress it fully, and but not go all the way back to hopefully fix that problematic area. Now we'll have a slight dead zone at the beginning of the pedal travel, but it won't be a huge issue. Now at this point I start rambling about a calibration workaround, but that turned out to not work, and I didn't have time to take them apart again before my session with Sean, as I had other things to do as well, and I wanted to do some basic setup work in the Star Master just so I didn't show up completely unprepared for the session. So for the time being I had to make do with slightly wonky pedals. Now the setup I threw together was actually very fast, but also quite dangerous, which Sean also noted.
Well, I'm a little conflicted. You know, before I was going to tell you, wow, this is just too much oversteer on throttle release. But as soon as I settled down a little bit and stopped using the brake, it's like, well, no, it's actually turning scrubbing into braking, so I don't need the brake on the high-speed corners, which at this track, of all tracks on Earth, is beautiful. Yeah, my only concern also is that it's like, that's a setup that feels real good. It's also the setup that if all of a sudden somebody did something in front of you erratically and you had to like touch the brake, all of a sudden you're backwards.
We had issues stabilizing the rear without losing time, so we decided to keep this as the qualifying setup for now, and then maybe sacrifice a bit of time by adding some rear wing for the race set. We worked for about an hour and a half, but it was all just minor tweaks and fiddly things that we're not going to bore you with.
On the high rebound for the rear damper, both left and right, I went to -6 instead of the 12. 24 is the opposite direction, full, 0 is the top.
So I've got another idea instead. So we decided to end the session with a 2-lap shootout, with Sean starting with a bit of a gap down to me, so I had to chase him down, and I'm going to take you through this prestigious event. Welcome to the Simpit Grand Prix. Welcome to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. There's only a few seconds before the lights go green and we go racing. Sean Paul, as he's affectionately and fittingly called, starts in front, while Andreas has got his work cut out for him to try and chase him down within 2 laps. The red lights are on, the engines are revving, and we're off! And it looks to be a good start for Sean, who maintains the gap as we enter turn 1, and no problem so far. They're both off cleanly as we enter the dangerous downhill turn 2, which is especially very scary on cold tires, and especially in this car. You can really feel the lack of grip on those cold tires as we enter turn 3 here, and Sean has still got a bit of a gap, although it does seem that Andreas is just slightly closing in on him as we enter this downhill turn. Flat out through here. As we take a look from the back of Sean, we can see how Andreas is just getting closer and closer, coming out of the Moss hairpin here onto the Mario and ready straight. And this is a place where we can really gain a lot of time as we go on board with Andreas. The slipstream is really strong here. You can just see how Andreas kind of sucks his way up to the gearbox of Sean. But I don't think it's going to be enough no, it's not going to be enough before they enter this last section, before rounding up lap 1. But he has close the gap in a bit and will be in a good position for lap 2 as we enter the final corner here. And white flag is in the air. We're halfway through the race and they are actually very close now. Andreas is very close to the gearbox for Sean now, and Sean has really got to stay focused now in order to keep him behind as we enter again this dangerous turn 2. Oh, and Sean gets a bit sideways. That's going to allow Andreas to catch up with him, and they're almost side by side coming into turn 3, but Andreas thinks better of it. But this does put Sean under some pressure, and you can see how he just kind of takes the defensive line, even though Andreas is not quite alongside him yet. And again here he takes the inside line to defend, to make sure he gets a good run out of this Moss hairpin. This is really his only chance, because the slipstream, as I mentioned, is so strong that Andreas is probably not going to have any troubles whatsoever to get alongside him here. You may even be able to pass him before entering the turn. So it's important, as you can see, Sean again takes the inside line to make sure he can defend properly. But Andreas is alongside him. They are 2 by 2 and they enter the turn, and Andreas goes a bit wide but tries to cut back here, but it doesn't work. They're very close. Oh, and they touch, and that's going to allow Sean to take the win. Just one last corner and he goes wide into the grass. Let's see if he can keep it on track. He can, and Sean wins this Simpit Grand Prix. But what an exciting race for this rookie and mentor 2-lap shootout.
And that, my friends, is why I'm not a commentator.
Anyway, that's it for the first day of the 7-day sim camp. A day that didn't come without frustrations, but a day which I can still take a lot of positives away from. And we do have a lot to build on for the rest of the week. So join us in a couple of days for the next 7-day sim camp video. This is the Simpit. I'm Andreas Martin Mørk. Thanks for watching Project Sim Racer.
It's always a bad feeling when you put something back together and you're still left with 3 screws.